Jayhawks? What happened in that matchup, and how does this thing kind of play out for them moving forward?
Well, defensively, they weren't great tonight. Keyshawn Hall just went nuts. He's a really good player. He's a bucket. I had an NBA scout here sitting next to me who was like, man, I'm disappointed I didn't get eyes on this guy earlier. He was mad that Central Florida didn't win, so he could see more of him. But I just think Kansas did, while they did enough to win, the Jayhawks, I wrote about it this past weekend, like they need Hunter Dickinson to play really, really well. And for the first half of this game, he didn't really do much. He had too many turnovers. They just don't get anything from their guards in terms of their guards being able to break people down off the dribble and get to the basket. And so, like you saw down the stretch of that game, it's so hard for them to generate stuff offensively. Last possession of regulation, like what the hell was that? I don't know. But it was like nobody really wanted the ball. But I'll give this to Hunter. Like he stepped up and hit a big three in overtime, and that gave him a little bit of separation. And then, Central Florida was just kind of did some things that losing teams do. And this wasn't the best out of Kansas. But hey, you survive in advance, and we'll see what they have tomorrow.
We got to talk about that play at the end of regulation, though. Like it's Bill Self, the brilliant tactician, the brilliant ATO mind, the guy that's always going to scheme up something good, and we get a mid-post ISO from KJ Adams. Like, what was that? Was that a mistake? Did they run the wrong thing? They just had no. Like, how do we end up with that?
I need to go back and watch it. Like I got to watch the tape, like a coach would say, right? But like I imagine
that, coaches, CJ.
Yeah, I imagine they were trying to get it to DeJuan and run something, and then it ended up with KJ, and it was like, okay, face up, whatever. That couldn't have been the first option. And if I had enough time, if I didn't have to get on with you jokers, I would have gone and asked Bill. But here we are. Don't tell my actual bosses. But anyway, I mean that couldn't have been the play, but still, like you got to have backup plans, right? And like that's this team where there aren't just enough guys that you can just give the ball to and go make a play when something breaks down. And I think that's been kind of an issue all year. Like I said earlier, they don't have a guard that you can just give it to and get to the bucket. And I think that's kind of been an issue all year, and that play was kind of symbolic of it. Like they weren't guarding DeJuan Harris all night. They weren't really guarding KJ in different spots. That's what Kansas has kind of become used to. But let's be honest, they still scored 98 points. Like their defense wasn't that great tonight. But give Central Florida some credit. They did shoot the ball really well.
All right, so first game of the day for you, Iowa State won by 20 over Cincinnati. Ho-hum to some degree, but, they got Keyshawn Gilbert back. He played 10 minutes. He looked atrocious in those 10 minutes. Doesn't look like himself. He's got that groin injury. Where's your confidence level right now? Because mine is not high, and I loved this team early in the year when they were healthy. I thought they could be a Final Four team. Do you think they could even be a second weekend team right now, watching them?
Because of their defense, they got a shot to get there, but I don't know that I'll pick it. Like, I think Gilbert is just he's a shell of himself. He's not the same. I mean, they're rolling with who they're rolling with at this point. I think they're just going to try to win like a couple of years ago, Iowa State, where you just kind of win with defense and you try to manufacture whatever you can offensively, but they're nowhere near close to what they were in November, December. And it's kind of a bummer to see. It
right.
Sucks.
I was going to say,
because they were really good early. Yes. They were really good early, and they're just not even close to that. So I think they could defend their way to the second weekend, but I don't see them going much further than that.
West Virginia. They were a team in our most recent bracket. They were a 10 seed, and they're in a position where they're probably safe coming out of a loss to Colorado. But you pick up another quad 2 loss, and they're sitting here now. Hold on, let me make sure I have it right here in front of me. They are 19-13 overall, 46 in the net, 53 in KenPom, which is like borderline, good enough, but borderline. 6-1 against 6-10 against quad one opponents. Gonzaga on a neutral, Arizona on a neutral. They beat Iowa State. They won at Kansas, which is a big one. They don't really have a bad, like, this is probably their worst loss of the season, but they are 12-13 against teams that are not quad four. And if you listen to our bracketologist, CJ, they kind of say this looks like a Seton Hall team from last year that didn't get into the NCAA tournament. How concerned is Darren DeVries at this point?
I think it's not going to be a fun week or a few days, not week, but a few days waiting for that bracket to come out. I think that, the bigger concern for them is, like, how are they going to freaking win a game in the NCAA tournament once they get there? If they do get there, because they're really having a hard time scoring the ball. He's done an amazing job to just get them in this position, because they don't have the talent of an NCAA tournament team to me. And they just kind of snuck out some good wins early. And like you said, they do take care of business usually against the bottom half of the league. And that's what was maybe surprising about today. And I'll be honest, like, I had a work Zoom midway through the second half. I step out for about maybe 10, 15 minutes to talk about the transfer portal. And I come back in and they're losing. But even before that, it didn't feel like they could never get separation, because they just can't score the ball very, very easily. Like, it's all Javon Small, and there's just too much on his plate. And coaches in the league have told me, like, they think he's worn down as the year's gone on. He was so good early.
It looks like
there's just been so much asked to him that I just think it's a lot, and he's worn down.
All right, the final game that you saw tonight, Baylor beats Kansas State. Scott Drew beats his former assistant coach, Jerome Tang. And I don't know, I feel like this Baylor team tonight looked as close as the Baylor team that we were hoping to see all year, right? Norchad was Norchad. VJ Edgecombe was terrific tonight. Yeah. Jaden Nunn was good. And the point guard duo.
He was really good.
Yeah, the point guard duo was fine. They weren't great, but Rob Wright and Jeremy Roach were solid if you kind of combine what they did tonight. So, I don't know. Was this just a win over Kansas State that you look at and you say, hey, ho-hum, I don't really take any stock in this thing? Or do you think that maybe this Baylor team's healthy enough that they can do a little bit of damage?
I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I think it was the best they've looked in a long time. And Nunn playing well, like, that was a big development for them, because, like, he was really freaking good in that game. But I also think K-State looked like a team that was just kind of checked out. And so you can't take too much from it, just because like Jerome Tang said afterwards that, if they got an invite to the Crown, he doesn't think they'll play. So, like, to me, that just kind of tells you, like, this they're just ready to move on to the off season. They're done. It was going to take a miracle for them to do anything. So, but you do have to give Baylor credit. Like, they had some pop tonight, and so that was promising for them. But I thought it was the best they've looked in a while.
Did you see the video of Coleman Hawkins in the locker room after the loss, breaking down?
I have not. No.
Yeah, he was full. Yeah, like, wow, sobbing. Saying it was his fault and he felt guilty, and it looked a lot like the pressure of having this contract and being the guy known as the highest paid NIL guy in college basketball, and the expectations that come with that, and then not quite living up to it, and the criticism and the kind of the hate that he got. It seemed very evident after or during the season that was weighing on him. I just didn't realize how much, man. Like, he was that was a hard thing to watch, and I would actually recommend anybody listening to this, seek it out, go find it, watch it, because I think it's worthwhile thinking about, just, next time you decide you want to be mean to somebody on social media. But what do you make of the Coleman Hawkins experience at Kansas State, CJ?
I don't put a ton of the blame on him, because I think that we've seen he can be good on the right rosters, right? Like at Illinois, he was good on the right rosters. He's not a star. He's more of a glue, kind of piece it together, a connector type dude. And, like, he's a really good passer. He can do some things defensively. I just don't think he was the guy that you can put in a starring role. And where they, it was a poorly constructed team in that, McDaniel was not very consistent and he had to be a star.